What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Jenks Island podcast, the only NFL podcast where you get your takes from a washed-up Division III cornerback and his friends. I'm your host, Grayson Jenkins, joined again by my great friend and co-host, Ty. In today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the Super Bowl. It's crazy that it's already here. It feels like just yesterday we were breaking down Week 1, and even in the preseason, doing the preseason takes and everything like that, and now the Super Bowl is finally here. The season blew by, but we got the Patriots taking on the Seahawks in San Francisco. Huge game. Obviously, the Patriots not playing as well up to this game as the Seahawks are, so that's creating a lot of discussions that this game is pretty lopsided, but we're still going to break down this game and everything that there is to it. So, Ty, what are your thoughts on this game? Getting right into it.
Yeah, I'll say this about the Patriots to start, and I'll kind of break them down first. Defensively, they played really well over, this stretch of playoff games. Without their defensive coordinator for the entirety of the year, this linebackers coach has really coached this unit up. Obviously, they're a talented unit, but that's a difficult task to kind of take over. And they've really started to thrive towards the end of the year, started to take off, and throughout the playoffs. Right, we've seen them. They made Justin Herbert's life like hell. They sent so much pressure after him, and he consistently, was either standing there like a statue, getting drilled, or getting moved off his spot and not able to find open receivers downfield. Going to the next week, right? CJ Stroud, 5 turnovers, super opportunistic by them. And then they come into Denver last week and, after the first drive, really stalled Denver's offense to anything. And obviously a backup quarterback, we can say things might have been different with Bo Nix, but regardless, that defense, that defensive line, the pressures that they were bringing, were getting more pressure on an offensive line that is regarded as probably the best offensive line in the NFL than they had seen all season. So, and you could tell, that the Patriots defense was feeling themselves. They were definitely, talking their shit about the offensive line for the Denver Broncos after that game. Different game if your quarterback can move around a little bit, but, nonetheless, right, they balled out. They forced 2 turnovers and won that football game and held Denver to single-digit points. And so, that defense has really been rolling. And, if they can get Sam Darnold in a situation where he played kind of in that middle part of the season where he was more turnover prone. Obviously, the start of the season was great. End of the season has been great. But, if they can force him into some mistakes, if he has a multi-turnover game, it becomes a lot harder for Seattle, right? You're playing against the best team in the AFC at this point in time. And I know that their defense is good, but, on that flip side, right, the Patriots offense is no slouch. They have played some tough defensive opponents, and they put it on the Chargers. They put it on the Texans. They took advantage of the opportunities that their defense gave them with a ton of turnovers. But where I start to get a little bit of concern is that Denver game, right? Because Denver's defense is, on par with the Seattle defense. I think Houston's defense is really good, but it's so hard to win a football game when you have 5 turnovers on offense, and Houston didn't, capitalize on all the fumbles that they forced. There was 3 fumbles that they didn't pick up, and that could have changed the course of the game. So you think about Denver's defense, right? They were forcing Drake Maye off his spot just about every other time he dropped back to pass in that first half, right? Second half, different story because of the snow. There was a lot more handoff, a lot more under center. But the first half is going to be something comparable to this game, right, where Denver's defense was flying after him, really forced him off his spot. The only time that they scored a touchdown was when they were gifted the ball inside the 10-yard line, and they got a field goal later on a questionable call. So, is Seattle's defense, are they going to be able to do the same thing? Yes. The answer is yes, right? They don't force pressure and get sacks at the same level that Denver's defense does, but they're not far off, right? They have a good defensive front. Their secondary is very, very good. And I think, they probably have less weaknesses on the back end than Denver did at the time with, a backup safety back there, right? They got Nick Imawari, who is a chess piece that they can put around anywhere, something that Denver doesn't have, and something that, can be a real issue for Drake Maye, because Drake Maye was able to take advantage of Denver through the ground. If you have a guy like Nick Imawari out there, he's going to track him down, because that guy, he flies to the football. He's super fast, right? It's going to become a lot harder for Drake to kind of, step up in the pocket and escape, which is something that he is probably one of the better quarterbacks in the league at doing. So, when you think about New England as a whole, their defense has played really well, just like they have all postseason. But Drake Maye and that offense need to show up. They need to hang on to the football because they've turned it over several times throughout this postseason. And they need to put up points because, on the flip side, right, Seattle's defense, there's some dogs. There's special teams. They might score. Rashid Shaheed has been, a game changer for this team in the punt and kick return game. And then you think about Seattle's offense and what they've become in this latter half of the season. No Charbonnet, obviously, but they've run the ball super well, whether it be him, whether it be Kenneth Walker, right? Kenneth Walker had a great game in that NFC Championship game. Sam Darnold played arguably his best game of the season against, again, in the NFC Championship game. He looked like an absolute stud. He was standing in the pocket, delivering darts for touchdowns. And not only is Sam Darnold playing well, they have probably the best wide receiver in the league at this point in time in JSN. So you put all this together, right, and kind of, New England has to play the perfect game. Seattle doesn't. Yeah. Seattle has won several games throughout this year where they didn't play the perfect game, where Sam Darnold threw 4 turnovers or had 4 interceptions, or they couldn't run the football. And that defense and special teams were good enough to win them the game. With the way that Seattle's offense is playing right now, how turnover-free they're playing, how efficient they're running the football, how efficient Sam Darnold's playing, and then you add in the piece with the defense and the special teams, I think it's a tough hill for New England Patriots to climb. I'm going with Seattle here. I like them, money line. I love the spread. The spread is insane, 4.5.
Yep.
I know you're never going to give a Super Bowl a 7-point spread or a 6.5-point spread. I would take 7. I would take 6.5 because, I mean, you would have to have – if Jarrett Stidham was in this – the Broncos went in, Jarrett Stidham's here, maybe they have a 7-point spread because it's a backup quarterback. But, a fully healthy squad, they're not – obviously, I don't think they would give them that, but I would feel very, very comfortable with Seattle winning this game by more than 7 points. And I think that this game has the opportunity to be a real bloodbath.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the spreads right now. A 4.5-point spread is relatively common. The most we've had ever in a Super Bowl was 18.5. That was in 1995. A lot of 14s to 10. Right? In 1995, it was the 49ers taking on the Chargers. So a relatively
that was a dynasty versus
some relatively lopsided game. Then you had the Patriots take on the Rams in 2002, 14. Patriots, Packers, 14, 1997. And then
nothing
Patriots,
in the modern era.
Yeah, modern era, the most recent, let's see, 2008, the Giants, Patriots. Obviously, that was a big matchup, but the Giants ended up pulling it off. Was 12.5. Outside
and that team was
that,
undefeated, so.
Exactly. Outside of that, nothing over +7 in any of the more recent games in the modern era. And I do think this game is probably a game where I think it would be justified to have a +6.5-point spread, like you said, but they're just not going to do that because the markets can honestly, I think there's too much value for them to give up if they make it that large of a spread. And let me say this, the Seahawks are the number 1 scoring offense and the number 2 scoring offense and the number 1 scoring defense. And like you said, Ty, they don't have to play the perfect game because of those two things, right? If the offense isn't doing an amazing job, if Sam Darnold throws a couple of picks or starts getting a little bit hectic or frantic in the pocket, we've seen that happen with him before. If he starts doing that, the defense will be able to slow down Drake Maye enough to get them the win. On the flip side, if the offense is scoring 30 points and the defense is allowing the Patriots to score 23, like it's just you could see the way that this game works in any sorts of fashion for the Seahawks. Whereas the Patriots, they have a top 5 pass or a run defense, but their pass defense is average to a little bit above average in different areas. So it opens up the game more for the Seahawks. Even if they can't get Kenneth Walker going, they'll be able to throw the ball to all of their weapons. Like you said, they have JSN, or should I say the Emerald City route. Route artist, the Emerald City route artist. Shout out to, I think it was Bladen from the Stay Hot podcast. Asked him about that nickname at a press conference on Super Bowl Row, and it is trending all over Twitter right now. Terrible stuff, but great.
The craziest nickname ever.
Great engagement bait. I gotta say, like he's getting so much engagement from that, and honestly, I gotta give him a round of applause. So props to him. But you have JSN, you have Rashid Shaheed as a deep threat who hasn't been utilized very much in this offense, but they still have him to do that. Cooper Kupp. Then you have AJ Barner at the tight end position, who's been really solid for them across all levels of the field. He can, not a deep threat, but mid-range, short range, and in the red zone especially, he's been there for them this season. Clint Kubiak's going to be able to scheme up a game where they take advantage of this Patriots defense. And I do think that they have a solid defense, right? Like you said, their defense has really turned it around the second half of the season. Not even turned around, but just excelled, gotten better and better towards the end of the season. But I do think that this Patriots team, if you slow down Drake Maye like they should be able to win this game, the Seahawks. And I will say this, Drake Maye is not playing with the best receivers. And obviously, Ty, you and I talked about this a little bit. Stephon Diggs was a comeback player of the year nominee, and he's been really good for them. But all of their weapons are relatively solid. I would say every single weapon that Drake Maye has, solid player. But none of them are great. He does not have a single great receiver or tight end. Running back, I mean, Travion Henderson is a really great big play kind of guy. He can break a play loose.
Yeah.
Just
long
like
term,
that.
he's got potential.
Yes. But right now, I don't see that being anywhere close to the Seahawks offense. Kenneth Walker's, he's better than Henderson or Ramondre Stevenson by far. I think that's a bigger threat. And in the pass game, Stephon Diggs, Mac Hollins, Demario Douglas. I will say that Kayshon Boutte could have a couple good plays here. He's gone under the radar and he's made big plays for this team. So he's a guy to keep in mind. I mean, Ty, what are your thoughts here in this game of just Drake Maye? Can you see him elevating this team against a really good defense, even though he wasn't able to against the Broncos last week?
No, I just struggle to imagine a world where these receivers can separate consistently against the secondary. You know, I mean, they weren't really able to do it against Denver, and like I said, this might be a better secondary. You know, I know they got Surtain, and you know they've got Denver's got some dogs, but we were without Brandon Jones, so PJ Locke, who was playing well, but that's not your starting safety, and there's some questions about Riley Moss, and but all of those guys pretty much locked down the Patriots for the most. They didn't have 100 passing yards. They barely had like 80. So, I don't know if they even had 70. So, obviously second half, but the way that things were trending, Jarrett Stidham had 100 yards in that game, right? So, I struggle to imagine a world where the receivers can separate consistently, and that kills it for Drake Maye right there and then, right? Because he runs for 100 yards, fine, but if you don't have a passing game, it's going to be really tough. And like I mentioned, how much is there going to be the opportunity for him to run when they have guys who can fly around like a Nick Emenwari, some of their linebackers are Drake Thomas has been great all season long. They have guys that can fly. They have guys that can contain him really well. And if Drake Maye has to beat you running the football, let him beat you running the football, because if that's the way that, they're not going to score many points like that, right? You saw that they scored 10 points against Denver, like I said, being gifted field position with him primarily running the football, and it didn't work out well for them. So, and there's no way, I've heard a lot of people say that this game is going to be a low scoring game and, it's going to be a defensive battle. Your point about that secondary for New England, right? We saw Christian Gonzalez get torched by Adonai Mitchell. We saw him get torched on a go route by Marvin Mims. In what world do you think that JSN is not going to have a field day with this guy? I know that Christian Gonzalez is a good corner, but JSN is an elite route runner. Then you got like you said, with Shaheed, you got Kupp. That secondary there. Sam Darnold doesn't even, it doesn't even have the toughest matchup, right? Like, obviously they're going to get a ton of pressure because they send a ton of pressure, but his offensive lines played pretty well all season long. His receivers get open fast. I just don't everything that's wrong for New England with receivers getting open and the passing game going to be a struggle in this game is everything that's right for Seattle. Seattle's passing game probably will thrive in this game. And, when we talk about Super Bowl MVP here soon, they have multiple candidates that can win Super Bowl MVP in this passing game for Seattle. I know, I've been back and forth on Diggs. I know Diggs I think he's been a crucial piece of this team as a veteran leader, as, the number one receiver, and I like Boutte, but they're not good enough to be separating against some of these guys. If they couldn't separate against Riley Moss, who I understand that, I'm a big Riley Moss fan, and I know a lot of people shit on him and whatever. He's not the greatest CB2 in the world. Seattle has a better CB2. So, if you couldn't separate against some of those guys, you're not going to be able to separate against Seattle. So, yeah, my take on the passing game is probably going to be non-existent for New England.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you here. And I will say this, even if the Seahawks didn't have the greatest weapons like they do, I think Clint Kubiak is such a good offensive coordinator scheme-wise that he's going to be able to scheme his guys open no matter who they're playing against. I saw it last year with the Saints when when MVS was the receiver one, I was saying how he was getting
Hey.
open at a consistent basis because Clint Kubiak was just scheming up good plays. And then obviously he comes to the Seahawks. He knew that Geno Smith wasn't the right guy. He gets some Sam Darnold, and the receivers are always getting open. Granted, they are great receivers. They're still getting open at a consistent rate because he is such a great coach. On the other side, the Patriots, they're here. I want to say they're here a year early, right? I really do believe that. I think the Patriots, no one expected them to excel this much. Everyone thought, hey, they'll be I thought they were going to be a wild card team. I did say that this offseason. I thought they were going to improve significantly, and they did. But a lot of that product is of the schedule. And I know that's going to be talked about. That's been talked about all season long, and the playoffs even. They had a relatively easy schedule in comparison to what other teams might have had to go through in the AFC, or even the Seahawks, who had to go against the Rams. And their offense didn't even look like it was hindered against the Rams. And that's something you want to see. Going into this game, they're going to just be hot. The Patriots have had slow games the last three. The Seahawks haven't slowed down. 49ers, they beat them down. Against the Rams, they couldn't stop scoring. So just give me the Seahawks here, like we both have said. I'm picking the spread. I'm picking them to win the game. I just think there's no way that the Seahawks, I will say this, maybe we're getting too comfortable with Sam Darnold, right? That is extremely possible, where Sam Darnold finally has the game that I've been saying all season, and even in the playoffs, that, hey, maybe Sam Darnold comes out and shits the bed. Maybe that happens, but the chances of that happening and the defense not being able to recover for them in turn, I think is very, very low. So give me the Seahawks here to win this game.
Yeah, and I like your point too. I mean, first of all, yeah, I think that the chances of that happening too. But I like your point too about, like, they're probably here a little too early, right? A year too early, because a lot of people have been back and forth. Oh, they won their football games, right? They can only play the teams on their schedule. But I mean, you have to acknowledge it, right? They did have a far easier schedule than Seattle had, right? Seattle has to play in a tough division where the 49ers were a Super Bowl contender. The Rams were a Super Bowl contender. They played some other elite teams along the way. And I know that New England had to play Buffalo, but outside of that, they kind of had a cupcake schedule. And how many other teams do we think in the AFC probably would have beat them if they were in the position that the Denver Broncos were in? I mean, we thought that Buffalo would have done it. We thought that Denver would have done it at full health. And, it's Houston should have beat them by, with a 32 other quarterbacks.
Competent.
So I think, they kind of, we make a lot of the defensives that they played in the playoffs, but, we don't talk enough about how easy it actually was. The Chargers weren't that good of a football team. Houston gifted them the game, and then they played a backup quarterback. So, I respect them for making it this far and making it to the Super Bowl, but if we're going to be honest, they don't belong here. And you could tell, like, at the Pro Bowl, we'll talk about the Pro Bowl later, but, the Denver Broncos players, they're interviewing them at the Pro Bowl, and they're like, yeah, good on them, but, like, we should be the team that's there. And then they predict the score, and, like, Pat Surtain's predicting it to be 35-7. Like, listen, there's respect for them being there, but there's no respect for what they're going to be able to do in this football game.
Yeah, and it almost feels similar in regards of just the team not feeling like the team that belongs to be there. Like, and I'm bringing this up, obviously it's biased as a Saints fan, but like when the Saints lost in the NFC Championship game, didn't make it to the playoffs, everyone kind of thought, oh, the Patriots are going to beat the Rams. Like, everyone just believed that the Patriots were the team that were meant to be there. The Saints were the team that meant to be there. And then the Rams are just kind of like the odd man out. And that's kind of similar vibe to this game, is where, like you just said, no one really believes that the Patriots, quote unquote, deserve to be there. Like, it doesn't feel right that they're here. And maybe they pull a rabbit out of the hat and they somehow pull off a victory in this game. I'm struggling to scrounge up an idea of them, a way for them to do that against a team.
It would have to be catastrophic. Yeah. Like, we would have to see something we have not seen all season long. We'd have to see Sam Darnold, multiple interceptions, and we'd have to see this defense play as poorly as it did against the Sean McVay Rams. They don't have an offense that can do that, and I don't believe that their secondary will be able to force Sam Darnold to that many turnovers.
100% agree. So Ty, moving on from our picks, let's get into our Super Bowl MVP conversation here. Who would be your pick for a Super Bowl MVP right now?
Yeah, I mentioned that there's two guys that could win this from the passing game for the Seattle Seahawks, and barring some really amazing performance by their defense or Rashid Shaheed returning two kicks or two punts, that kind of wins the game. I think it comes down to two guys for me. Saying that Seattle wins the football game, right? Sam Darnold and JSN, and I think if JSN has like a 150-yard game, two touchdowns, which he very well could. We've seen him do it. I think that he's the guy. If Sam, though, throws for 300 yards and three touchdowns and doesn't turn the ball over, it's going to be him because, it's not just about it being a quarterback award. I think that's more about what Sam Darnold was and what he is now and what he's become. Like, the journey that he's been on since the Jets took him, kind of the road with the Panthers and all this, to the failures that he had early in his career. And then to come here, at Minnesota, have some success, and they sent him away. And then to come here in Seattle, have all the success, play so well and lead his team to the Super Bowl. I think part of it's just that story that, will fuel like, hey, Sam Darnold, you're the Super Bowl MVP. But if JSN has a 200 of 150-yard game, which he could, he's JSN, he's going to contend for it. But my pick's going to be Sam Darnold because I think he's going to play really well. And I think the story behind him is just so awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. I'm going to go with Sam Darnold. And mainly it is because this has become more of a quarterback award. I said 2 years ago when I believe that Harrison Butker should have been the Super Bowl MVP for the Chiefs when he had 12 points of their score against the 49ers I believe it was 49ers a couple of years ago. And then he didn't win the award. Patrick Mahomes won. Obviously, he had a solid stat line, but 12 points is 12 points single-handed. I really fully believe that Harrison Butker should have won that. But going to this one, like you said, unless JSN goes absolutely ballistic, it's Sam Darnold's award to lose. And that is a full circle moment, a great moment for him in the story after what happened with him in Minnesota, where he just kind of got moved on. And we don't have to get into it, but I think it's insane that they did make that decision. Obviously, Sam Darnold played an amazing season. And yes, he didn't lead them anywhere in the playoffs, but you're just going after JJ McCarthy. You already picked JJ McCarthy. You're going and just banking on him. And I just think it was such a bad move.
They could have flipped JJ for draft capital at that point in time too, right? The vibes weren't so low on him. And yeah, some people might say hindsight's 2020. Hindsight's not 2020 when the guy won 15 games for you. So
yeah.
And he was in the MVP conversation last year. He was the top 5 MVP candidate. So
yeah.
But to your point about Super Bowl MVP, last one that we saw not be a quarterback was Cooper Kupp. He had a pretty good game, 8 catches, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. Julian Edelman had a 140-yard game. And the last defensive player, Von Miller.
Interesting.
So, I'm trying to there's a mix. When you look back, it seems like, quarterbacks for the most part, but there's a decent mix of corners, receivers, linebackers, no running backs though.
The favorite for a defensive player to win would Worry, right? I feel like even Worry or maybe
even Worry,
one of their linemen.
I could see Leonard Williams having a good chance. That guy's had pick six,
strip sack or two.
Never know. yeah, definitely. And you know what? If it's New England, I think the story will probably be about how well Drake Maye probably performed. So, he's definitely a candidate. If it's a defensive battle and New England somehow pulls it off, a guy like Christian Gonzalez, maybe he gets a turnover or two, right? He had an interception in the last game. On the defensive front, I don't really think there's anyone that would shock us. But, listen, we've been shocked before. There's been guys like Malcolm Smith who got a game-winning interception. No, he didn't have a game-winning. He had a game-winning interception. No, Malcolm Smith for the Seattle Seahawks. When he
won, you're going back to that,
he won Super Bowl MVP, right? That was kind of an unexpected guy. Yeah, in the blowout. Yeah. But, unexpected name, kind of came out of nowhere and won Super Bowl MVP. So there's been guys, but, I think the favorites are usually the stars.
Yeah. Anyways, moving into a rapid fire discussion here, Ty. We're going to go down the board by position for each of these teams in the Super Bowl here. You just say which side is better in your opinion. Starting off, we got quarterback. Which team has the better quarterback?
New England.
Running back.
Easily Seattle.
Receiver.
Seattle.
Tight end.
New England.
O-line.
Seattle.
D-line.
Seattle.
That one's tougher. Yeah, I went with Seattle there too. Linebacker.
Are you considering him an Warrior linebacker? Like he's
No,
their best
I would keep
piece.
him at
He's in the
safety.
DBs. I'm gonna give it to Seattle too. I know Bobby Spillane's been great, but he was banged up in that
Yeah.
last game, and yeah, I don't know.
And I'll do DBs as a whole. DBs as a whole.
DBs as a whole Seattle, but if you did safeties, if you did corners, it's still Seattle either way.
Yeah. Yeah, I went the same way there. And then kicker, what were your thoughts on kicker?
Give me Jason Myers, man.
He's been really good this year. He's like 85% kick rate, so he's been great. Yeah. And then head coach, last group.
I'm gonna go with Mike Macdonald. I think that Mike Macdonald, what he brings defensively, I think they're both great leaders, but what he brings defensively is so unique. He is a defensive mastermind, and it really changes everything for this team, right? Because, like we said tons of times, if this offense doesn't perform, this defense can win football games for them.
Yeah, and when you look at that breakdown of that scoring, that's like 3 New England positions to however many is Seattle.
Did you disagree with any of them?
I want to say I put Seattle at quarterback just because it was Drake Maye's second season. It's just because it's still kind of younger, and I've seen more from Darnold more recently, so that's more recency bias. But I definitely understand the Drake Maye pick there.
I mean he's probably gonna be second in the MVP race, so.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's purely just in the playoff like performances, but yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say if we're talking playoff performance and very recency bias, obviously. I trust Sam definitely more right now.
Yeah, that's kind of where I went with it, and then I went with Vrabel, similar, just because he's been a longer head coach and because of the turnaround. But I think the Seahawks had a solid team already, relatively, and then McDonald just elevated them, whereas Vrabel took like a 4-win team to the Super Bowl. So I just put him there. But yeah, outside of that, pretty much all agree in agreement, and it's just a landslide. It's a landslide for Seattle. So crazy there. But moving on, Ty, right into our Pro Bowl thoughts and reactions. Obviously, the Pro Bowl happened last night, or Pro Bowl and Pro Bowl games. Even though I didn't really see any of the games. I was at work, and I didn't think they broadcast them or anything. But that Pro Bowl might have been the most drastically bad product that the NFL could have put out. And I don't know if it was because there's no aura in the stadium because it's in a convention center. I don't know if it was them, kind of taking a 50, like just a 50% effort at a flag football game, or if it was the refs not really knowing what they were doing at times. They seemed to kind of make a few bad calls. They had Dak Prescott cursing them out at times. Like it was all over the place, Ty. But what are your thoughts on the Pro Bowl?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of it becoming flag football because I think in the modern era, you're not going to get, so many people want that Sean Taylor hit on that punter in the Pro Bowl. You're not going to get that, right? Player safety is at an all-time high, and and how much the elite cares about it, right? And so you're not going to see something like that if you put full pads on. You're going to get what the product was towards the end of that, which is just players, kind of hugging on each other, and running the football was weird, and you got some great catches, but it wasn't anything, right? So I do like the move to flag, especially if the NFL tries to push some of these guys to go play in the Olympics. And you're still going to not get great effort because it's the off season. They've had a long season. They're not trying to bang themselves up. So you're going to get probably like 50% effort, like you said, but they're still freak athletes. So 50% effort is absurd. I just think that they got to change the venue, right? I think it's got to go back to a place like Hawaii where it's exciting for these players to go and get a vacation, right? And, the fans want to go to somewhere like that, and it's outside and it's got that kind of vibe to it, right? Like the indoor thing was weird. I did love that Garrett Bowles caught 2 touchdowns. That was pretty good for the fat guys. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I think, you keep the same product, or as in terms of like, you're probably going to get the same effort. You get a flag football game, you send it to Hawaii, but you got to change it up a little bit. I don't like the AFC, NFC stuff. I think we've talked about this before. Maybe you go with the U.S. versus the world type of thing, right? The game has become, a lot of these guys have the patches on the back of their helmets where, their grandparents is from Germany or wherever it may be, right? So maybe you get something like that. Maybe you get some captains and you do some type of a drafting thing, right, where you let the quarterbacks, draft some teams. Mm-hmm. But the other thing too, like with some of the players, or you talked about this a little bit too, maybe a rising stars type of thing, young stars versus the Pro Bowlers, because I think there's one big issue, right? And it's the players that turn out for the Pro Bowl, right? We got a lot of great players, but if you look at the quarterback position, we had Joe Flacco, who
So
was on the
bad.
same team as Joe Burrow, who was also at one point on the same team as Shedeur Sanders, who actually sucked this year and made the Pro Bowl. So, it's if you did a Pro Bowl team of, some of the league's best, or two Pro Bowl teams, some of the league's best, and then a young rising stars team, kind of like, what the NBA was doing there, where they had the rising stars, they had the Team USA, and then they had the Team World, right? You gotta change it up somehow, because the AFC, NFC, I don't think it's quite working with the players that are coming out. I don't think the conference is the problem. I think it's the type of players that are coming out for the Pro Bowl. And the voting's got to change. I'm sick and tired of people voting for Shedeur Sanders to get in just because, they think that he's actually good, like because they're brainwashed fans. He's not good. Newsflash, we've seen it all season long. He doesn't belong in the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl is a part of Hall of Fame voting, so we can't be
Yeah,
having this, right?
exactly.
Let the media, let the coaches, let the players, and let the fans have a 25% vote, right? The NBA does it where I think it's media's 25, coaches 25, players 25, and the fans 25, right? So and the league, the NBA, has the ability to put in a guy like Kawhi Leonard because he belongs to be there, right? So the NFL, I think they need to take more control over that and who gets in. The fans, they don't even need to know, right? Don't tell them that everything's changing, and they'll never know at the end of the day, and they'll be
They're
like,
just
"Oh
gonna be
yeah,
sending
this
in their bot votes anyways. It doesn't
right."
change it.
And Cam Ward made it, and people are like, "Oh yeah, he's a rising star. That makes sense." Not Shedeur Sanders. So there's definitely a lot of changes that need to be made. I mean, there's questions about the game, right? I think the game itself doesn't exist. Jamal Murray, Denver Nugget, just came out. He won obviously in the NBA, but he just got his first All-Star selection, and he said, to be quite honest, I'd rather go on vacation than go to the All-Star game. And that's maybe some of the vibes for some of these guys, but you got to make it like a vacation. And I think that's why sending them to Hawaii would be great.
Yeah, I 100% agree on the location. And I will add to the location piece that the NFL cares about expanding its audience, right? And expanding the fans that are able to go to experience these games. And they have all these international games. And we're going to talk about the international games in a moment here. But when you send it to Hawaii, you're giving those fans that aren't able to, travel frequently to the continental United States out of Hawaii, you're giving them an opportunity to go see all their favorite NFL NFL players, all these fans, these young fans, the opportunity to go see them. And we saw the Hawaiian fans and even just fans just going on vacation. Like you said, the players are on vacation. Fans want to go on vacation too to go see this. Like we saw that stadium get packed out multiple times for Pro Bowls, and they have it at a convention center now where it's maybe 1,000 to 2,000 fans can go and watch these players. And it just sucks to watch that you're missing out on all of these fans being able to experience that moment. And then let me say this about the game format as well. I would love to see, because we don't see a lot of linemen being able to participate in this, an all linemen flag game. Maybe a half of the skills players, a half with the linemen. Let the linemen all dog it out against each other. Because I know as a fact that they're going to try hard against other linemen and just go
I mean,
moss
Bowles caught
each
2
other.
touchdowns.
Exactly. They want to go play,
Yeah.
have something like that, because they don't get to do that in the regular game, right? They're not able to go and run routes very often. We've seen a couple this year, a little bit more often, but it's just they don't get the opportunity to do that. They'd love to do that in flag football, and that adds some
Or they got to
excitement.
fix the challenges, right? Like the challenges, they used to be so great. The bench
Yeah.
press, the longest throw, like, things like that were so awesome. Bring back those old school ones. Bring back some of the, we got to change the unis too, right? They're too basic, right? The Pro
Yeah.
Bowl unis used to be so sick. Every year it was like, damn, what's the Pro Bowl uni going to be this year? I know they're shirts, but you can still make them cool, add some unique, spins on it. And the last thing I'll add on this, why the hell is it in the middle of the week? You have a week between, you have 2 weeks between the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship game and the NFC Championship game, right? You have a weekend. You're losing viewers by putting it on a weeknight and the challenges on during the day. Put it on a Saturday, put it on a Sunday. It'll be on every bar in the freaking world, and fans will be watching it. It just, they just screw themselves in trying to get people to watch this game. If it was on a weekend, I'd maybe watch it. I forgot it was even on a weeknight.
Yeah, and not even like a Thursday or like a normal prime time night. Like Tuesday night for
I
an
got that
NFL
Tuesday
related
night.
event is just, it's just horrific. It is terribly ran.
It's terrible.
And And I will say, I love that idea with the jerseys because you have the MLB and the NBA. Every single All-Star break that they release those jerseys, they're being talked about for a whole day. The uniforms alone, because people love breaking those down or buying their favorite
Yeah.
player's All-Star jersey, even if it is a T-shirt, like you
Right.
said, like you could make it just look cool. Like a blue or white
100%.
shirt is not. I'm not jumping out of my seat to buy
I bought a Chris Harris Jr. Pro Bowl jersey back in the day because I thought it was so sick. I'm not
Yeah.
buying these goddamn shirts, these orange shirts for a Garrett Bowles Pro Bowl. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, it's just not worth it anymore. But it's crazy. I'm hoping that they turn it around. Maybe this coaches or the owners meetings or whatever. Maybe the league decides to turn around. I just don't see it
The
happening.
players would have to say something, and I mean, maybe they would, but it kind of looked like the players were like having fun. You know, they were jovial, they're smiling, but I think it would have to be more of a player-led thing at that point. I don't think the owners give a damn.
Yeah, I mean, Micah Parsons was having a blast on his little go-kart, on his wheelchair. Yeah. So, he was having a blast. But moving on from the Pro Bowl tie, the NFL has announced that it has at least nine international games, 3 in London, 1 in Spain, 1 in Australia, 1 in Mexico, Germany, Brazil, and then also the Saints are playing in France. So they added another country here. But what are your thoughts, Ty, on the international games? And are you a fan or not a fan of them adding more and more every year?
Yeah, listen, I think it's awesome to grow the game, and that's the goal with the NFL here, right? And I think they've done a great job with that. You know, we've seen, like I mentioned earlier, a lot more international players. You know, the game is growing in a lot of different countries, right? But there's there's more leagues in different countries. There's more national media around some of those leagues, right? Like, when I was a freshman in college, we went and played an Italian team over there that was coached by Art Briles, a former Baylor head coach, right? So there are a lot of leagues that are popping up around the world. And I think that's a huge, push from the NFL's global game, going on playing these international games. I know it's tough on the players. I like what they've done where, I think it was the Jaguars this past year, or maybe it was Minnesota. They played like back-to-back international games, right? And that's awesome because, you get more acclimated to the time changed. There's not that jet lag. And I think at some point in time, right, this 18th game has been floating around. I think at some point in time that the NFL, if they really want that 18th game, they need to market that 18th game as, okay, that will be your international game. Because instead of making teams have to do, right, 2 international games, because players separated from their families, like there's a lot more than just the jet lag and the time change, right? So if you said, okay, week 18 or week, whatever week it is, right, this is the international games. And I think there would be a lot more attention around it. I think it would be hard to maybe do it all in one week because of the time differences. But if they just had one, you get one international game and that's the 18th game, whatever week of the season it might be, I think that's a better, marketing push for them. But I like it. I think, fans overseas have loved it. And, we've seen a lot of fans from the continental United States going over there and supporting too. I want to get to a game here soon. It's just an awesome experience. And I think I like it. I understand the players' concerns with some of it, but they've been playing on good fields from what I can tell too. It's more grass than, honestly, some of the fields are probably way better than MetLife Stadium. So they're great soccer pitches that, they definitely care about the grass. So I like it overall. I think it's cool. I think it just adds a different blend. And, we see games like the Brazil game that was on like a Friday night. And I get to wake up at 9:30 in the morning and watch some random game. I think if they put more emphasis on making them good games, that would be awesome. I know obviously some of it, injuries and stuff like that definitely derails it. But, making it like high quality games over there would be great.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I would love if they added an international week. You kind of mentioned that would be like a possibility. Obviously, that might be tough for scheduling, but if they were able to figure that out where you have mid-season, you have just an international week, like that would be amazing. That way everyone's having an international week at once. And then also, I would love the idea, if you keep it at 17 games, if you make it so every team has an international game, it creates an equity across the league of how many teams are playing at home and away and then an international game. Because right now you have teams that are having a home game ripped away for just to put them internationally. And that's that fan base missing out on an extra home game where other teams are having another one. So it's just, an equity issue there a little bit in the across the league right now. But all in all, I like you said, I really don't mind the international games. I think they're a great experience for fans internationally. And like you said, maybe even you can go to the games. Like you're from people here in the United States, gets them a great experience to go travel abroad and see their favorite team play there. It's a good opportunity for everyone. And I do think it makes sense that the NFL is trying to expand more and more. So I'm not opposed.
Best case scenario for them too is add that 18th game, give them another bye week,
Yep.
and then push the championship game and Super Bowl window. Like, it's only 1 week apart, and Super Bowl would then be President's Day would be Super Bowl Monday. So then we don't have to be picketing for Super Bowl Monday to be a national holiday anymore.
Yeah, it would be pretty incredible if they decided to do that, because I just think everyone would be happier. You get the extra day off. And even I saw a tweet talking about if they move the Super Bowl to a Saturday, if they don't do that, because there's that 2-week break. So then at least you have another day afterwards. Maybe that's a possibility, but I
don't.
Super Bowl Sunday is the right way to go.
Super Bowl Sunday, but I doubt that they'll push it to 1 week. There's been too much of this kind of buzz with the Drake Maye injury. Like, it's nice that he gets the 2 weeks to rest. Like, get the goddamn season over with, right? Like, why are we giving teams 2 rest? It's the same thing. I'm going to go on a rant about college football too. It's the same damn thing with college football, right? They have like 2 weeks between every college football playoff game, and it's just ridiculous. They need to play. They need to end the season on January 1st and then get into football. And the NFL needs to stop being on Saturdays. Let college football run their season from week 0 in August until January 1st. And then after that, right, because we're getting college football games on a Thursday night because the NFL is playing on a Saturday. Let them play their games on Saturdays. The NFL can take some Saturday games when that season's over. But I'm just tired of we got football on every night of the week. Like, it's meant for Thursdays, it's meant for Saturdays, it's meant for Sundays, it's meant for Mondays. If you get a little action on a Wednesday or some bullshit CUSA game on a Friday, fine. But the big football games belong on those 4 days.
I 100% agree. And I will say, I'm not opposed to that 18-week schedule where you do have 2 buys. I don't think they should add a whole another extra game to make it an 18-week schedule. But if you just add a second bye and an international game for every single team, I think everyone's happy. I think the players would be fine with it. They're getting a little bit of extra rest. And then I think it also provides you more money, right? I think if you have all of those international games, you're reaping in a lot more money from everything coming all together. So would not be opposed to that.
The NFL could offer a little package where it's like, hey, buy this ticket, you get a plane ticket. The Denver Broncos did this with their international game. It was the DNVR podcast. They kind of did like almost like a booking thing where you got you went on this tour, you got your ticket, there was Broncos rallies. Like, the NFL could offer packages like that and get a little ka-ching off that as well. So more revenue money. Yeah.
And the salary cap goes up, players contracts go up. So we just see the league is growing exponentially right now. So it's great to see. It's great to see that other fans are able to experience it as well. And I love that it's growing. Even like on the podcast, it was pretty cool. Ty, like before you started coming on more often, we had a guy named Rude who won the first season's pick'em, or he won our fantasy league. He was from I want to say the Netherlands, and it was really cool just getting him. We had him on the podcast even. It was pretty cool because he's also a Broncos fan, so that was yeah. So Broncos representation internationally. So it was very, very cool to get feedback from international fans and things like that. Love to see the game keep going. But anyways, that will do it for our Super Bowl picks episode. Ty and STERB might be doing an episode tomorrow night. We might be dropping that Friday for you guys. Keep an eye out for that. They're going to be breaking down the Super Bowl a little bit more. STERB giving his picks, obviously, and then other things across the league to break down. Ty, what else were you guys considering breaking down tomorrow?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the head coach hirings, the last 2 in Las Vegas and Arizona. STERB's going to give us a little bit of advanced stats, a little next-gen stats for STERB. And then if some of the odds are out, we're going to give you our 3 best picks for player stats. So
awesome. So definitely make sure
out. It's been a problem.
Yeah. They won't make the picks or the bets available for whatever reason. They were screwing us all season long because we're recording on Wednesday nights for our picks because it's Thursday night games and they're just not putting the parlays out. So He was killing us. But anyways, you guys know where to find us on social media and wherever you get your podcast at Jenks Island. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out Friday's episode with Ty and STERB. We'll see you guys next week.